Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Are you still sleeping? It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. We got episode 65 coming at you of the School of Shred, the one and only. This is the show designed to help you shred your old and make better your new. You know what time it is. What we're going to talk about today is prioritizing three different things. Every Monday, not every Monday, but I've had a couple episodes where I take the opportunity to speak as if I could talk to my younger self because I like talking to myself. It might be a little bit crazy, but that's a different conversation. But if I could speak to myself, I feel like these topics can be very helpful if I was to find the young John lad from years ago and say, "Hey, fella, here's some tips that you might want to consider as you get into this fitness journey here." So that's kind of what we got here today for you guys. All right. So we're going to prioritize these three things that we're going to get into. But before we do that, throw some flex emoji in the comments. We already got some workouts going on. We got double biceps. We got front double bicep flexes going on in the comments. What's up, everybody? Good morning, school. Welcome. Welcome to Monday. Welcome to another week. Welcome to another day of shredding your old and making better your new. All right. It's a better body, a better mindset, a better life. We don't just shred body fat here. We shred limitations and habits no longer serving us. The show's here Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Shout out, shout out, shout out. I'm going to be posting the link for a free one-on-one consultation if you're interested in potentially becoming a student at the School of Shred and part of my whole mastermind program that I have going. I'm going to be posting that. And then if you're not on the newsletter list, I don't know why you are not. You're getting free information on that bad boy. So go to schoolshredpodcast.com and jump on the email list. With that said, let's get into it. Episode 65, everybody. So we got three things here to talk about today. So there's three things that you should prioritize, or three things that I would prioritize if I was younger. What would I do? The first thing we're going to talk about is commit to a 6 to 12 month goal. Okay. The second thing we're going to talk about is add things in before you subtract things. And then the last thing that we're going to go over in this episode today is going to be focus on the how of exercise, execution, how you're doing the exercise, not the what, which is rep schemes and what your program looks like when you print it off on a piece of paper. Okay, we want to know how to execute on these things before we start to worry about, you got to do 12 reps because that's the best for muscle growth. None of that matters unless we are properly focusing those forces into our body. So let's get into it, eh? So number one is commit to a 6 to 12 month goal. Now I'm laughing because this is something that I really wish I could have told myself at the beginning, because I was really naive when I first got into lifting and trying to, transform my body and get healthy. And, I've said on the show before, when I first started working out when I was like 18, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this for a couple months. I was all fired up from, I think it was watching Fight Club or Rambo, one of those two. Those are like my hallmark inspirations to get in shape. I'm like, I'm going to work out for a couple weeks and then I'll just stop. I'm just going to, I'll do the bare minimum there. So I'm going to push through all this pain right now of going to the gym, and then I'm just going to stop. That's a pretty stupid thing to think, right? And then when I got into this thing, I started transitioning my goals too frequently. And so when I moved over to the big old city, I moved away from Ellensburg, Washington. Shout out to Ellensburg, everybody in Ellensburg. My girl Audie, I think she's out there in Ellensburg right now. What's up, Ellensburg? Good morning. But when I moved over here to the big city, I got a gym membership and whatnot. I continued to work out because I kind of started over there when I was a senior in high school. And but then I was back and forth. It was like I'd want to bulk up, so I'd be like trying to gain weight. And I didn't really know that, like, this calorie surplus, calorie deficit thing. And so I would be bulking up, and then I'd get, like 2 weeks into it or maybe a month into it, and I'd be like, well, I need to shift gears and cut now because now I'm feeling a little fluffy. And so then I would reverse it, and then I'd like try to cut down, and I was just throwing stones in the opposite directions, and it wasn't getting me anywhere. And so what would happen is I would start to kind of start to gain some muscle and gain some weight, but I wouldn't hold it. And then I would go to lose the weight to try and get lean. And what that does is it just keeps you in that state of homeostasis where it's exactly where your body wants to be. Your body's looking for this homeostatic set point. It's got this little needle. It always wants to, it wants to stay where it's at. And so what you want to do is if you're trying to change your body and your composition and all that, you want to get to that goal and maintain that goal for a bit before you transition to anything else. And so the first thing that I would prioritize if I was speaking to my younger self would be to commit to a 6 to 12 month goal. So if your goal is to get leaner, to get nice abs, to get some fat loss going, which is ultimately where I think a lot of us want to be. A lot of times gaining muscle is just a means to an end to get to being lean. If we're talking about just the look of the transformation here, that you want to commit to that for a good period of time. Because what happens is you just start to shoot yourself in the foot. It's like you take a step forward and then you take a step back. And that's kind of what I noticed that I was doing for a while, which was like, and I got to where I wanted to be eventually, but I would definitely have cleaned up my goal setting by pursuing goals longer than a month or 2 months. Because I definitely had that bounce back and forth where I was stuck on the scale. And I was talking to a client about this last week, or I think it was my girlfriend. We were talking about goal setting and whatnot and how it's different for guys and girls. And look, now this is obviously a gradient. I'm not typecasting anybody here, but I kind of am. But for the most part, my experience, women are scared to gain weight from muscle. A lot of my clients are scared to gain weight. And then I have to explain, how they could be muscle tissue. But guys, on the other hand, us dudes out there, we don't like to lose weight. And so for me, I started off lifting weights. I was a 160-pound little skinny kid. I think I was 155 pounds. I got up to 180. The highest I've ever been was 193. But I had a really hard time, being under 180. I thought that it was just and it was just a mindset thing. So anytime I'd start to really get lean, I'd start dropping under that 180 pounds, I'd want to bulk up again. So what I'm saying is that if I would have just stuck to a process for 6 to 12 months, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to focus on getting as lean as I possibly can and see what kind of muscle I have. And then I'll transition from there. But I'm going to do this for at least 6 months or 12 months. You write that down, look at that goal daily. You got to write it down. You got to get pen to paper, you guys, not on your laptop, not on your phone. Take a freaking note card that I've showed you guys before. This is how you do it. You need paper, you need pens, you need to be looking at these things every day. And you need to be getting the kinesthetics of writing this stuff down. What is your defined goal? Write that bad boy down and then review it every day, and then stick to the process and read that on the days that you're not motivated and the days that you are motivated. In the morning and at night. The greatest thing that you could do is have these things next to your bed. So that's the first thing that I would prioritize, is just committing to a 6 to 12 month goal. Don't bounce back and forth. We have to learn how to be consistent here. When you learn how to be consistent with your fitness, your health, your nutrition, your exercise, all of that, which you're doing right now, if you're listening to this, you're interested in that, right? You want to create that discipline and the commitment. When you do that with this health thing, it goes out into everything else. Okay, so it will go out into your profession, into your careers. It'll go out into your relationships. You'll be consistent. You can consistently show up with love with the people in your life. You can consistently show up as a good friend. You can consistently show up at work and get the raise that you want or start the business that you want. But you can learn this through simple body transformation goals. And I know it sounds like a lot, but it's amazing. This is how powerful fitness is. This is why we talk about holistic health and fitness, because I am a product of holistic health and fitness. So I'm just here gacking about my personal experience. And I've been very lucky to find the career of coaching others and helping them. And really that's what it does, is it helps you produce more in your life. And it actually, all the results that you get out of your body in this process, you can then relate to any other area of your life. Okay. And so this discipline of just writing your goals down 6 to 12 months, commit to this process, and then we move on. Okay. It's very important. Number 2 is add things in before subtract things or take things out. And so this is one that I like to do for the psychological side of the house. And this is definitely more geared towards nutrition stuff. So what I like to do, and I'll use examples of kids who I get who are like 15. So I've trained numerous young laddies. I love all my young kids. They're great. So, a couple different athletes and whatnot. I think it's great because there's a lot of childhood diabetes now and obesity. It's really not good. And so when I get the opportunity to try and pour into a young one, somebody who's, under 18 going to high school or whatever, it's a great privilege. And so what you can't do though, is tell them what not to do. You don't tell a young kid. You have to be sensitive. You can't be like, hey, don't eat this because it's really bad for you. It's going to get you fat and give you pimples. That's a great way to start to cause disordered eating in kids, and you don't want that. So if we were to extend that, and by being very diligent and choosing my words wisely with the younger kids that I've trained in the past, I started to develop, well, why don't we just do that with adults as well? And so what I've noticed is if I'm saying, hey, add these healthy things in, add in more water, they start drinking less Coca-Cola or Gatorade. If I say, hey, try to get this much water in per day, try to get 100 fluid ounces of water in per day. Well, they have to focus on consistently drinking that much water, or, drinking water throughout the day. And so by focusing on that, they're now not focusing on the Coca-Cola. And there's a great line in some Napoleon Hill books, pretty much in every one of them. But the one that I just read called Outwitting the Devil talks about this. And it's basically this law of when you add things in, things have to fall off. Okay. So to gain something, you must lose something. I think it's called the law of compensation or something like that. Napoleon Hill didn't create it. He was quoting somebody else from the early 1900s. But anyway, it's a powerful thing. So in order to get something has to fall off the table. Okay. Like in order for you to get a healthier body, partying, like excessive partying with your friends on the weekends has to fall off. I've noticed this kind of stuff. So if you start to look at that, it's pretty cool, because if you just add a healthy thing in, add in a salad or, 2 salads a day to your meal plan, and all of a sudden you're going to be satiated and full and not want to go grab cookies and whatever your comfort foods are. It's a great place to start. So you look at adding things in as opposed to taking things out. It helps that psychological side of the battle, because a lot of this, honestly, this whole thing is psychological. If you're trying to improve your life, it is a mental battle. You need to protect your mind. This is why at the School of Shred, we have a whole curriculum that's called spirit training, because it's not good enough to just have a program and try to go through it like a machine. You're a human being. You have emotions, you have hopes and dreams and aspirations. You have a world that takes the piss out of you, and can be relatively negative sometimes. And so we have to be protecting our mind like armor. And this is a psychological battle. And so when we can get psychological victories, like adding things in, and oh cool, I'm trying to add this thing and I'm focusing on this nice healthy thing, and then for some reason you're like, well, you know what, I haven't had that that thing that I used to be crushed by in my diet, whatever it is, that thing that I deem unhealthy, I haven't had that in 2 months now. Weird. I wasn't even thinking about that, because in order to add something and gain something has to fall off the table. And so that's something to consider. Add things in before taking things out. And the last one we got today, guys, before we wrap up here, throw me some fire in the comments if you guys are still with me. If you guys are enjoying this episode, let me know what's up. Ask any questions you guys want. We're live right now, man. Let's interact a little bit. The last one is number 3. Focus on the how of exercise, not the what. So this is really big, because when I started exercising, I was always really confused on, should I just load with a lot of weight, load the muscle? Should I just do high reps? Should I just, what should my rest breaks be? And then I got into personal training. I started to get into the science of it, which is like, here's the ATP cycle, and this is how long you need to rest before you can go at it again, or you want to try and work your anaerobic threshold zones and whatnot. And again, it just drove me even deeper down the what route. And it was only until I did a course that I talk about all the time, called RTS, that it rewound the time, and we went back and we started focusing on the what, because the how doesn't really matter until you master the what. right? Or I mean the reverse that, okay? The what doesn't really matter until you know how to do it. And what I mean by that is technique. I would be focusing on sound technique. I would see it as an investment. Exercise and putting force through your body, you guys, is an investment. Okay, it's long term. Successful people think long term. Poor, unsuccessful people think short term gratification. Okay, the richest people in the world, the people who have good relationships, the people who have good careers, they think long term. The people who have good bodies, that take care of their bodies, they think long term. We'll use an example. Somebody who sacrifices on a Friday night, I wouldn't even say sacrifice. You don't have, it doesn't always have to be a sacrifice, but maybe you stay in, you make a healthy meal. Maybe you bake some salmon and you make some vegetables and you stay home. Maybe you have a glass of wine, but you don't go out. You don't go to the bar like you usually do and go waste a bunch of money because you're thinking long term. You want to get that 10 pounds off or whatever it is. That's one example. Think about another example. You get your paycheck. You take 10% of that. You put it in some type of a investment account so that money grows, compound interest over time. Okay, so it gets, say, 8% returns a year. And then you get 8% of that the next year. And then as that grows, you get 8% of that the next year. And you get this crazy compound interest that happens instead of taking that 10% and going and blowing it on clothes. Okay, so successful people think long term. When you're going to start exercising in the beginning, you focus on how are you doing the dang thing, because it's an investment in your long-term orthopedic health, which is going to keep you from getting arthritis, hopefully. It's an investment in your long-term muscular health, because if you know how to do exercises better, you're going to be better off and you're going to be hitting and stimulating muscle tissue more as time goes on. And that's going to lead to more gains. Just like investing your money is going to lead to more gains. Just like staying in and, not going out to do what's easy and go drink all night on a Friday and excessively party. Partying is good when you're celebrating. That's fine. I celebrate with my friends, but I just don't do it a ton. I used to. I don't do it now because I realized what that was doing to my psychological mindset. And I think more long-term now. And you can think long-term by worrying about the how on exercise, not the what. And so if I was going to tell myself, several years ago, I'd say, focus on what you're feeling in the muscles when you're doing the exercise. If the goal of the exercise is to hit the chest, make sure you're hitting the chest before you ever add load. Make sure you can master that with light load, because if you can't contract your muscles with light load, you got no business loading up from there. Because what happens a lot of times when we're lifting weights or we're doing exercise, whether it's body weight or whatever, is we just hope that by loading, good things are going to happen. You make the good things happen by learning how to execute on these things. So we want to focus on the how. How do you do the thing? And when you know how to do something, when you know how to do that press, how to do those squats, or how to do that leg extension, whatever it is, how to contract the muscles that you desire to hit, then you can start to lace in, okay, well, I think I want to try and explore this 15 rep range now. I think I want to try and explore this 5 rep range now. And you do it slow and controlled, limit inertia. I wouldn't be throwing weights around and going as fast as you can. That can be an issue. I call those inertial shitstorms. If you're just flinging weights around and you hear the plates going tink, 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 you have a lot of inertial effects going through your orthopedic structures there. And it might not be good over time. You might want to consider that, or you might not. Depends on who you are and where your mindset's at. But anyway, that's it, you guys. That's episode 65 right there. So thank you guys for tuning in. So let's go over a brief overview. The 3 things that I would prioritize to my older self, or younger self rather. My older self, I have no idea, because the one thing that I know is I'll watch this video in a year and I'll be horrified. And that's what can keep you on the sidelines, is knowing you're gonna get a little bit smarter as time goes on. And now we got the internet that's gonna keep you accountable, man. So. But anyway, my younger self, the 3 things that I would prioritize are commit to a 6 to 12 month goal and not be just jumping back and forth that's a sign of being indecisive. We want to correct that with our fitness goals, and it will correct into our whole life where we can be stand on our own 2 feet, not be indecisive, and we can make decisions, okay, and have a definiteness in the things that we do. And then number 2 is add things in before taking things out. Okay, so add good foods in before worrying about pulling out the bad foods. All right. It's a psychological win when you're adding things in, because in order to gain something, you must lose something. In order to gain something positive, you're going to lose something negative. If you focus on adding the positive in, the negative will fall out. The last thing is focus on the how of exercise, which is muscle recruitment, going slow and controlled, feeling the muscle that you want to fire. Focus on that, focus on execution. I would not be focusing on the what, which is just reps and all that. You can start off with a generalized 10 reps when you're going to exercise. If you need a start point, that's kind of what I would have done. You know, it's heavy, but it's also not super, high reps or whatever. Be focusing on honing in that skill of the lift itself and actually utilizing the muscles I want to train. If I'm trying to do it for just strength purposes and I don't care about hitting muscles, well, muscles create movement. So that's one thing that I would consider. But number 2 is if you're doing it for a sport, then you want to be as efficient and clean with that lift as possible. So just focusing on the how can help with that. So those are the 3 today, everybody. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 9 a.m. With that, I want you guys to stay strong and healthy in body, stay relentless and energized in spirit, stay determined in your pursuits today. That spells shred. Now go shred the day and get better in every way. Episode 65. We'll see you tomorrow for episode 66.